Hi, welcome back to the Very Good Gardening Podcast. I'm Kristen McCoy, and if you are listening to this right now thinking, I'm behind, did I miss my window? I haven't planted anything. I want you to take a deep breath and know that this episode is for you. Today, we're going to walk through exactly what I would do if I was starting a brand new garden from scratch right now in March in my Zone 7B Maryland garden. What I would plant immediately, and what I would not waste my time or money on. And if you want to dress like a gardener while you're starting your first garden, head on over to my Fourthwall shop. I've got all kinds of gardening merch over there for you to browse. All right, let's get into it. What would I do if I was starting my garden right now? First things first, please do not panic. I know that March feels like it's late because all of these experienced gardeners have all of these things that they're already doing and have already done. I get it. But when I was first starting at this big level in this garden, I was not planting anything until right about now. I didn't start any of my tomatoes or peppers from seed. I got all of them as starts from the local nursery. Most people don't even start a garden because they think they're already behind. But really, this is the very perfect time to be starting a garden in your backyard, especially if you're in the same zone that I'm in. You're definitely not late for warm weather crops, and you're not even late for a lot of the cool season crops too. Right now, I have not planted my potatoes yet, and usually they are in the ground by now. That's making me very nervous, but I know that it will be okay because usually my potatoes get hit by a late frost anyway, and then they have to start all over again. So I'm reminding myself that maybe if I just plant the potatoes and they don't pop up until after that late frost, then they will be even healthier. We're doing a little experiment. Usually my potatoes have been delivered by now, but they have not. I'm trying to be patient, but things happen in the garden and out of the garden. So I understand. I'm trying to be as patient as possible and reframe my thinking that my potatoes, they will be just fine. Let's talk for a second about what I would start from seed as a beginner gardener and what I would not. I would not try to start anything in the nightshade family from seed. That means peppers, tomatoes, eggplant. I'm going to buy all of those as starts from the store. I recommend going to your local nursery. They tend to have better quality and more variety of plants anyway. Starting everything from seed can be extremely overwhelming, and you need a lot of things that more experienced gardeners have kind of collected over the years. So skip all of that and just buy those starts from the store. You are still a gardener. I hate when I don't use the word hate very often, but I really do hate when people try to say that you're not a real gardener if you don't start everything from seed. That's just not true. And remember that you are a beginner, so try to make it as easy on yourself as humanly possible. You can buy a lot of things as starts from the store, but I do recommend not buying cucumbers or lettuce or radishes or carrots from the store because they do not like to be transplanted, and there's going to be too much shock when you're putting them into the ground. So get that out of your head right now that you're going to start all of your plants from seed. That's not necessary. Where I would start is evaluating your space. Take a look at your space that you're planning on turning into a garden. Are you planning on doing in-ground beds? Are you doing raised beds? Are you going to do container gardening? Are you going to do a combination of all three? Evaluate what works in your space, and then we can go from there. Once you've evaluated what's going to contain your actual plants, then you want to look at your sunlight. Do you have a lot of trees in your backyard? If so, take a look at how the shadows move across your gardening space. This is going to determine what you're going to plant where. Are you getting full sun? If so, then you might want to consider getting some kind of shade cloth to help protect your plants once they pop up. Is your space south facing or north facing? Because if it is facing the north, it's going to get less sun than if it's facing the south. At least that is the case in the northern hemisphere. A lot of people skip over the sunlight, not really understanding how their space works, and then they've built an entire raised bed right there, or they've built several raised beds, and they realize that that area only gets about 4 hours of sunlight each day. Also, consider your house or whatever structures you have nearby. Are those going to be creating shadows? This is really, really important. It doesn't mean that things cannot grow there, but you're not going to want to put peppers in a place that doesn't get enough sunlight. It's just something to consider. Focus right now on the setup, or you will be kicking yourself later, I promise. You're going to set yourself up for failure if you're not mindful of where you're planting your crops. Then let's talk about the next biggest thing, and that is your soil. Soil is everything. Soil is what makes or breaks a plant. Most of the time, you can kind of manipulate sunlight, and if it's too much sun, you can add some shade. If there's not enough sun, then you can plant certain types of cool weather crops that don't need as much sunlight, but you really can't get around not having good soil. Good soil is the difference between a huge harvest or none. Know what kind of soil you have. Do you have sandy soil, rocky, clay? I have red clay soil, so that's why almost everything that I grow is in raised beds. All of the soil that you see in all of my gardening videos, that soil has been brought in. Now it's been mixed with that red clay soil over years and years, which is probably why it's as nutritious as it is. But I started out mixing my own soil in my own raised beds because I knew that that clay soil was not going to grow pretty much anything. Actually, that's not true. You know what loves my red clay soil is my raspberries. My raspberries, I dug a hole, I added a little fertilizer, and they go wild. It's amazing. So I guess some things do like the red clay soil, but something like a carrot isn't going to have anywhere to go because the clay is going to stop it. If I had to pick one thing in my beginner garden to spend all of my money on, it would be the soil. I also think it's worth getting a soil test just to make sure and see what your pH is if you're planning on using your in-ground soil. If you're not planning on using your native soil, then I suggest that you use the following combination of things to create the best soil possible for your raised bed or containers. I do 50% compost, 20% vermiculite or perlite, 20% peat moss or coco coir, and 10% of aged manure. This combination has never failed me, and in my raised beds, my soil has actually been seeping down into my native soil and conditioning my clay to be this beautiful, not red, but deep, deep black gold soil. Not gold like the color, gold like as in super valuable. Now, that 50% compost can come from your own compost pile, but if you're a beginner, there's a really good chance that you don't have your own compost, which is totally fine. I use leaf grow to add to my beds because I don't make enough homegrown compost because I have a lot of area that I need to cover. Unfortunately, though, Leaf Grow, I believe, is a Maryland-only company. I don't think you can really get it anywhere else, but it is amazing. If you have access to Leaf Grow, I highly suggest that you use that. Black Cow is also really awesome. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not sponsored by either one of them, but Black Cow is also really a great option. Honestly, I think this is where a lot of beginning gardeners, they make a mistake. They realize that soil can be rather expensive, especially when you're filling a bed, and they try to skimp on that by buying cheaper soil, and they don't get the results that they were hoping for, which is a really, really big bummer. If this is too costly for you, which I totally understand if that's the case, I suggest asking around in your local gardening groups. I have a local Howard County, Maryland group that I'm in, and I bet if I were to ask, hey, look, I cannot afford to get all of this leaf grow to fill my beds up, 50% of compost, What are your ideas? I guarantee you, you will get hundreds of comments from your local gardeners that are all saying, hey, go here or ask this person, or oh my gosh, there's a sale on this kind of compost, blah, 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 blah. You get the point. Local gardeners are always eager to share where they get their deals. I do find that a lot of gardeners, especially local ones and your neighbors, they don't want to gatekeep. They want more people to garden because they want to be able to talk to you about their gardens. And so if you have a garden, then they have a reason to talk to you. I promise that there are so many gardeners in your area who want you to have a garden so that they can talk to you about gardening. Make sure that your soil has at least 20 to 25% of that perlite or vermiculite so that your soil can drain. That is very essential. And then that coco coir or peat moss is going to help retain the water in your bed, so it's a nice balance of both. So let's talk about what I'm planting right now. In fact, today I am planting radishes, carrots, lettuce, and tomorrow I'm planting peas and all of my brassica plants. If you're a true beginner, then you might not know that the brassica family is an umbrella of plants. This includes broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, kale, cauliflower. All of these are brassica plants, and they're all cool weather crops as well. So all of those are going in the ground tomorrow for me. I started all of those brassica seedlings from seed back in January, but again, I'm thinking as a brand new beginner, so I wouldn't have that. I would go to my local nursery and I would buy all of those as starts. Putting brassica seeds into the ground is not going to give you enough time to actually see any kind of harvest because brassica plants notoriously grow very slowly. Again, if I'm thinking as a true beginner, then I would not be buying any starts that are considered warm weather crops. This would be peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, cucumbers, bush beans. All of these are warm weather crops. If you buy them as seedlings right now, they are going to be in your house for about 6 weeks before you can put them outside. So do not buy those yet. But all of the crops that I said I was starting today, like carrots, lettuce, radishes, those are all going to be directly sown into the soil. So I'm taking the seed and I'm putting it right into the soil. I'm doing that today because those are all cool weather crops as well. And I'm putting peas in the ground tomorrow. I have to tell you that as a kid and teenager and most of my adult life, I did not like peas. And that's because those are the peas that you find in the grocery store in the frozen bag. The only thing that I think that those are good for are for putting them on a sore spot on your body. Like if you hurt your shoulder, putting a bag of frozen peas on your shoulder, that's what I think that they are perfect for. They are not good for eating. I am not a shelling pea kind of person. I do not like them. But I do love snap peas. I think that they have a very different taste and you eat the entire pod of the snap pea. I think they're very sweet and they're just the greatest dipping vegetable that has ever existed. And by the way, whether you're growing snap peas or shelling peas, both need to climb up some kind of trellis. So consider that before planting. Now let's move on to what I would skip as a brand new beginner gardener. I've already told you that I'm skipping starting everything from seed. Anything in the nightshade family I'm buying as starts. I'm also buying all of my brassicas as starts as well. Except for kale. Kale is very easily started from seed. I didn't even think about that. Direct sowing kale is perfectly fine. I'm also not buying any grow lights or any fancy equipment because that is too much money and I don't need them because I'm not doing any indoor seed starting. Honestly, as a beginner, I'm probably not going to be growing eggplant or broccoli because I find that those are two very difficult crops for me to grow. So I probably would avoid those if I were to have the knowledge of the experience that I have. I would not plant those as a beginner gardener. I would also skip over planting. More seeds does not mean more harvest all the time. If you're going to put 10 seeds of cucumber plants right in a row in a little 4-inch square, you are going to probably not get many cucumbers, if any at all. Cucumbers are notoriously heavy feeders and they do not like to share their nutrients. So they are going to grow and then they're not going to have enough nutrients to actually produce any fruit. I also wouldn't plant my tomato plants closer together than 12, maybe 18 inches apart. Again, more plants does not necessarily mean bigger harvests. Sometimes it's the exact opposite. This is what my first 30 days as a beginner gardener would look like. Week 1, I'm setting up my beds or containers, I'm buying my soil, and I'm buying seeds. Week 2, I'm planting all of my cool weather crops outside, and I'm figuring out how I'm going to water them. By week 3, I'm probably looking at some germinating plants, and I am maybe thinning out my carrots and radishes so they have a little bit more room to grow. I'm looking for any mistakes that I may have made, anything that didn't germinate. Maybe I'm planting a little bit more in there, but I'm fixing any early mistakes or I'm trying to anticipate any mistakes that may arise. Week 4, I'm looking into possibly adding some fertilizer, maybe getting some fish emulsion and watering with those, depending on the level that my plants have actually grown. Also in week 4, I'm not doing much else because remember that gardening takes time. Plants take a while to grow, and doing too much too fast can be more of a hindrance than it can be helpful. Remember that as a beginner gardener, your goal this year is not perfection. It's not even about getting a big harvest, but rather learning how to grow in your space. Don't focus on the results, but put all of your energy into the process of growing. You don't need a perfect garden, you need a started garden. So if you've been feeling behind or overwhelmed, I hope this episode helped you realize that you can absolutely start right now. And you can still have a very successful garden this season. If you take anything away from this episode, let it be this. Keep it simple, focus on the basics, and just get started. And if you want a little extra confidence in the garden, head on over to my Fourthwall shop. That's where you can pick out a shirt or two to dress the part of a successful gardener. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you're following the podcast so you don't miss the next one. I've got so much more coming as we move into the growing season. Now go get started on your brand new garden, and I hope it's as fulfilling as mine has been for me. And as always, go grow something very good.